G'day. Today we're just finishing off the vise made without a vise, and that's it there, all done, finished. Well, there's a little bit of minor trimming up to do. I've got the Loctite set and a few things like that, and there's a few changes that I might make too. I might put a bit of a bevel on the back surface there because it's doesn't need a sharp corner there probably, but anyway, it's done. So today is mainly the fixed jaw plus a few of the minor parts. I'm preparing the material for the floating jaw, the moving jaw, and I've run into a bit of a problem. For a start, this is Rudy's way of securing the material to face off the ends. He just says rest it on a parallel, put a clamp between. If you've got two pieces the same size, put one either side, clamp down, and you're good. Okay, and you need to tram those up as well. That's okay for pieces of material like this because it's only 3/4 of an inch thick, and so it fits in the cutter nicely. This is the shortest side, which is still just a bit under 1.2 inches, and it's right at the limit of the cutter depth. In fact, there's still a little bit of a flange there. I have to attack that with a file. The other thing is there's not much stopping this twisting. You could put another clamp there, but even then, if it grabs, you're gone. So what I've done here is put one of my fences behind. I've trammed that up, and that gives me something square, hence just pulling it onto that with a clamp. And then I've got this one pulling down, so I've actually got that secured in a much more, shall we say, robust way. So something to bear in mind, something as simple as that helps enormously stopping the material twist if you haven't got much in the way of clamping. Now, I think what Rudy's idea was you'd have this all tramped up, you'd clamp it down, you'd face that end, you could then wind your mill up and face this end. I'm going to have to come back and just sort of turn it around, work out where I am, measure it and do it again, I think. I've got my floating jaw to length, so 3¼ inches. Height is 1.218. Width is 1.19. I don't know where these numbers come from. They're just what's written down on the page. A bit odd. I'm now doing the groove that's going to sit across the bed. It's 90 thou deep, and it's sized so that it matches the rebates on the vice base. So it's sized so it goes across there. I measured mine as 2.388, and so the notes suggest making it that minus nothing plus 5 thou. So that's what we're aiming for. It's going to come out, well, hopefully, with a nice snug fit. And one of the interesting things is because that distance and that distance should be the same, it means that as I get up I should be able to check that with this as a gauge as per Rudy's recommendations. There's my moving jaw, and the instructions said to take it out, in fact the same way I do any slot I want precise, which is go down the middle and then just nibble it out. I think I'm a couple of thou oversized, but I get a very nice sliding action. There's a little tight spot just up here, and strange enough that doesn't worry me too much because I've still got to put the jaws in there, and so the jaws will pad that out by probably that much, and so that'll slide all the way up to there. So it's now just a matter of boring the hole through there and putting in the notch for the screw head. There's a screw that goes down to here. Now, Rudy has some plan where it sits like that. His suggestion is, okay, start here, drill halfway through, turn it over, drill halfway through on the other side, and go from there. As you saw, I've gone and drilled out the moving jaw. Here I have to confess to a mistake. The instructions say drill in from both sides, and I decided, well, if I go a bit further and then I flip it over and then I drill in, it should meet up, everything will be nice and smooth. Unfortunately, it wasn't. There was a very slight step there, so a slight bit of misalignment on my part. And so the pin, which is 16 diameter, sort of went to about there and stopped. In fact, you can still feel a slight catch. So I've had to get out an adjustable reamer and just take that out. And so it's now about 16.1. That doesn't actually matter because that's going to be held there by the, where is it going to go? By the screw through there. So it's not going to be able to go sideways. So that's quite all right. In fact, it's probably a little bit better because it can rotate a bit more easily. But that's just something that if you're making one of these, you need to watch out for, is that, yes, it's nice to have a hole of the same diameter, but if there's a slight mismatch and you've got a close fitting pin, it won't work. Here's my sliding jaw. I've put that relief in there for the nut. I now need to come along and put a slot, a 3/8 wide slot through here for clearance for the shaft of the bolt. Now, a couple of things to notice here. First of all, I've gone in with a texture and I've marked where I want to remove that material. It's not exact, but it's just a sort of a reassurance so that I don't put this thing upside down or cut on the wrong side or all that sort of thing. So if you're at all sort of a little bit concerned that you might do the wrong thing, you know, marking out on stuff isn't a problem. I'm using one of my homemade V-blocks here, and that'll give me that 45-degree angle I'm looking for. I'll have to pack that up on a bit of stock, just so that I've got enough clearance for the cutter to come out, because it does come out somewhere on the corner there, maybe a little bit further on, but it's around there anyway. The other thing worth noting here too is that on Rudy's instructions, he uses a couple of small V-blocks on each corner and then uses a clamp onto that corner. I'm going to do something a little bit trickier than that. I made up these once upon a time for a job where I had to clamp on a circle. Now, this sort of clamp is also used for this type of vise. If the vise didn't have that flange on there, you'd make up a clamp like that to hold it down. Okay, but we don't have to do that here. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that to hold down on that hole, and I have one on either side. And that way I'm going to hold this into my V-block. These are homemade. The only sort of surprising thing about this is the slot, I guess. Everything else is just a bit of material in the lathe and putting a round boss on the end. So making up strap clamps not difficult, and for a job like this where I've got a hole that I want to clamp down with, ideal. So something that, you know, if you're looking at, you know, all these sort of strap clamps and think, oh, you know, I'd like a set but I can't afford them. You don't need anything as sophisticated as that. You could do that. You know, if you didn't have a mill, you could drill a couple of holes or drill several holes and then clean it up with a file, or just drill one hole until you've done your vise, then come back and put a slot in. So lots of ways around that one, but I just thought I'd show this because this is a homemade strap clamp. Works quite nicely. This is the setup I'm using to put a flat on the vice rod, and the flat is just because when the socket head cap screw is bearing on that, it needs a decent bearing area. So I've got a 3/8 cutter, and I've just gone either side of a centre line there to get myself the area. Once again, because I've used a metric fastener rather than an imperial, it's slightly larger, so I've got to do that. I may end up doing something like that on the pin that goes through the vice body, and the reason for that is just that I don't really like the way that's you know, when you put a thread into a round piece of stock, you're going to get funny jagged edges and that sort of thing, and I don't want jagged edges down there because it may mean that I can't slide the pin out more easily, or as easily. So I may end up putting a flat on that, possibly just with a file, just to clean that up a little bit. A couple of things to note just before I put everything together. The biggest one is probably there. I don't know whether you can quite see that. One of the things, and Rudy makes a note of this too, so I better pass it on, is that with the middle screw, that interferes, or that's in the same place as that through hole. Doesn't matter. There's enough thread in there to engage, but it's just something to bear in mind. If you see that happening, you think, "Oh, I've made a mistake there. That shouldn't be like that." No, that should be like that. That's how it all works. Just the way the design works. If you really wanted to, I guess you could have a shorter screw there and not have your tapped hole going right through. But as it is, that's pretty easy to make. So there it is, a vise that can be made without actually having a vise to make it on. The last part of, until I can think of something else, of bootstrapping the mill. Thanks for watching. See you for the next one.